Hi, I'm Chef Michael Nelson. Today I'd like to demonstrate for you the classic way of cutting a fish, but today I want to demonstrate it for you on a chicken. As you can see, we got our two perfect boneless, skinless breasts, or fillets if you will. Here we got our carcass. Now, just like we would after we get our fillets off of a fish, what do we do with the carcass? We take the entire thing and throw it away. Now, on an average fish, we're only going to yield somewhere around 20–40% on a boneless, skinless fillet like this. So to me, it's the same thing as taking a chicken, removing the breast, and throwing the rest of it away. What I like everybody to think about is treating a fish the way we do chicken. After we remove the fillets, you know, what's left? There's the collar, there's the belly, there's the dark meat. So we need to rethink the way we're cutting fish and try maybe treating it a little bit more like a chicken. All right, so I got a wild Mississippi redfish right here. I think this is a good fish. Give you a little example. What I like to try to do is remove the entire side of the fish rather than just the fillet. And when you do that, I think you get a lot better perspective on how much there is actually to eat on the fish. All right, so if you're gonna gut the fish, what I recommend, all fish is gutted, and sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't, but all fish should be gutted along the belly, along this line, between these two fins, and all the way up through the throat. That is the proper way to gut a fish. So I'll go ahead and try to give you an example of that. I like to insert my knife right behind these two fins and just find that spot. Cut up that way. You can cut back down this way a little bit. All right, and there we have a properly gutted fish. I'll go ahead and cut it here, and I'll take the viscera out where you don't have to see that part. All right, now you can see we've properly gutted the fish. I cleaned it out for you a little bit. You missed the nasty part. The next step I like to do is right behind the gill plate, you'll see a little bone. You can kind of tuck your knife underneath there. What you need to do is loosen up the collar. So what I do is just take the tip of my knife and go ahead and separate that little bone on the collar. And at this point, you pretty much follow standard procedure for cutting a fish. You know, you're just going to come up around the head the best you can, follow down the spine with your knife. All right, come on back. All right, and the usual, we're just trying to get around the spine a little bit along the back. But what I like to do that's a little bit different is use the collar and make sure that comes off with the fillet. So I want it all to come off in one piece. So I'm just loosening up that little membrane right here behind the collar. All right. And now when I come up here and I try to break those first couple of kind of pin bones right here, probably get in there and see a little bit better. When you start exposing those ribs, now typically I know most of us just kind of follow those ribs around with our knife. What I'd like you to think about doing is getting a good pair of scissors. I think we miss a lot of the meat on a fish by going around the ribs. By trimming the ribs right off of the spine and leaving that on the fillet when you remove it, you really get a much better yield. So I'm gonna get in there with my knife. I'm gonna find those rib bones and just trim those off a little bit. You know, just the first 5 or 6 of them is fine. And now, basically, the entire side of the fish wants to come off at once. I'm gonna go ahead and repeat that with the other side, and then I'll show you what we're looking at that point. Okay, so I've cut the other side of the fish the same way I did the first side. And when you open it up now, what you see is the whole fish. And at this point, you can remove the head and the top of the spine That's basically all you got left. Now, we could talk about eating fish heads later. That we'll get to another time. Right now we're going to talk about the fillet. So, if you take a look at what we have here, you recognize the normal yield of the fish and what you get. So, what I like to focus in on is this belly section and this collar. All right. So, let's go ahead and just remove one of those. So what I'm doing here, I'm just cutting this out, and this really would not affect the yield if you were just to cut this the classical way. So I'm just cutting off the part that would normally get discarded here. All right, so we'll cut that side off. We'll come around, we'll cut this side the same way. All right, so like we saw with the chicken, here are your two fillets. Okay, I haven't taken the skin off them yet, but you get the idea. Now, here's what's left. Now, to the untrained eye, you're like, oh, I don't know, what can we really eat in there? Let me tell you, there's a lot. So, I think it'll be easiest just to go ahead and make this into two pieces to take a better look at it. All right. And we'll flip it over in here, take a peek from this side. So, all right, so here's our two collars and bellies attached, still intact. So the two cuts I like to get out of here. The first one I call a fin wing or a fish wing. It works off of almost any fish. So typically I'll just cut it somewhere right in between around this fin, okay? And the trick is to kind of get your thumb in there and just gently peel it off of the collar. Okay, so there's one. I'll get one more off of this side. And here are my two fin wings and my two bellies. So to clean up these fin wings, there might be a little tiny bone fragment left on the top. But other than that, there should be no bones left in it at all, other than the one that is attached to that fin, which runs down the center of the meat and kind of holds the whole thing together. At this point, they're pretty easy to skin. And basically what you have here is the chicken wing of the sea. You can do this off of almost any fish. So easy to remove. I like to just dip them in a little batter and fry them. I'm telling you, it's one of the best cuts of the fish. We're throwing out millions of these every day. All right, so off this redfish, we're gonna get two of those. All right, so I'll just go ahead and skin this one too real quick. All right, probably could do a little better job with that, but we'll come back to that. So we got our two fin wings. All right, now let's talk about these bellies. All right, so here's our bellies. At this point, you remember how we cut those ribs with the scissors? We need to take those rib bones out. But by leaving them in, we were able to keep a lot more meat on the fish. So what I do, grab them with a pair of pliers and just kind of hold the meat in place, and you can just pull those rib bones right on out, okay? So we're just gonna follow them all down. Depending on how many you cut is how many you gotta pull out, but as you can see, they come out very easily and they're hard to miss. It's not like a pin bone on a salmon. So we got all those. There's one more up here. Take out this last one there. All right. Now, admittedly, this is the inside of the fish, so you want to clean it up a little bit. All right, there we go. And depending on the fish, you know, I would have scaled this and left the skin on it. Redfish, maybe a little bit of a tougher skin, so I'm going to go ahead and take the skin off of this one. So we're just going to go ahead and grab that skin, follow it on down. All right, when we get down to the end, we're just going to try to trim out the skin. I like to always leave all the fins intact. I think they look really great when the fish is cooked. So go ahead and just take a few scales off of there. All right, so this is your belly. All right, again, typically at the restaurant, I've been frying these, and what I'll do is kind of dip the whole thing in some sort of batter. And just like the fin wing, when I dip it in the batter, I hold it by the fin, and I don't get any of the batter on there. And when I drop it into the fryer slowly, what happens is the fin ends up cooking just like this. Fans out beautifully, really adds the presentation. But as you can see, I got a good 3 extra ounces of meat on this belly. All right, so you figure you got on each side 1 wing and 1 belly off of a redfish. I would say we've increased the yield by almost 1/3. You could feed easily a whole extra person just by using this technique. And like I said, you can apply this to almost any fish, especially fish that have a really edible skin. Your yield is even better. And I think that this little technique could, probably save millions of fish from the ocean every year.